Hey everybody, it's Erin James with Crafty Housewife Yarns, and I finally am going to make this video. I use the king bee in a lot of my other videos, and just in general, I use the king bee a lot. And as a Spinolution dealer, I do get asked a lot of questions about it. And even though this wasn't a problem I particularly had, which is why it's probably taken me so long to make this video, because it wasn't a super obvious topic to me, I get asked a lot about it, is people that think the treadle's really weird on it. And so like I said, this wasn't a problem I personally had, so I had to sit down and kind of think about it for a while if I was going to make like a troubleshooting or a like what's up with that treadle video. Like what I would include in it. So that's what this video is going to be. So this video is for anybody out there who like the king bee, or not, I'm just saying the king bee because that's what I have, but any of the bee wheels, like the dimensions and the foldability, and you just think it's awesome. You think it's the bee's knees. You like that pun? But anyhow, it really appeals to you, but you have tried it, or you've maybe heard about it and you're unsure about the treadle on it. And so you are nervous about purchasing one, and but then you're like torn because you're like, that would be the perfect wheel for me. So I don't want that to be you, but so because I think it's a fantastic treadle. It just maybe is something that you have to you know, learn a little bit if it's different than what you have tried in the past, or if you're a beginner. So anyhow, without further ado, that's what this video is. Okay, well here she is, the king bee. So this is a wheel that I love and I use all the time, and I've got some nice natural Shetland here I'm going to show you on. And so I'm just going to kind of pretend you don't know anything about this wheel. So most spinning wheels have like one big wheel that is the drive wheel, and the drive wheel goes around and turns the bands or the straps, and then that's what turns the flyer head or the bobbin, and then that's how you make yarn. But on the king bee, since it has the capability to fold into a box, which is pretty slick, and it's got handles on the back, you know, where you can carry it, it is obviously kind of weird. So you open it this way and fold it down. The lazy Kate pegs would go over here, but we don't need that for this video. And so on this wheel, we have two drive wheels. We've got the big one over here, and then this kind of smaller one. And then it's turned by, there's kind of this lobster claw action here, where this opens up, and there's ball bearings in here that turn this wheel, which then turns this wheel, which then turns this strap, which then turns this wheel, or the flyer. So it's definitely an adventure, for sure. So one thing with this wheel is... so the lobster claw closes, and you do want to make sure that it is firmly closed. You know, if you live in a more humid environment, then trust me, you know what I'm talking about with humidity. It makes everything kind of stick or be weird. So definitely, you know, squeeze this shut all the way, make sure it's closed. You've got, one thing people really love about the bees is they've got tons of ratios, which I am not necessarily the queen of gears. I'm kind of an old fart and put it on like certain settings that I like, and then that's what I use. And I dare say that's how most people are. So, but if you are one of those people, especially the queen bee, I feel like really appeals to people because it's got some like extra gears in there, even more so than this one that really like lace weight or having those extra gear options. The gears are located, there's 3 back here, 3 here, and then 3 here. So that's one of the benefits of it. I honestly normally leave, and so this is where I was getting to the troubleshooting, is if you just took one out of the box and it has all these gears, it can be a little bit overwhelming. I leave mine, and I have made other videos on the past. I used to prefer it more with this on the bigger one and this on the, like the next one down. But I've been using it, and I think it's easier for teaching people and beginners, and you get with it on the biggest gear over here, and kind of this middle one over here is what I would recommend starting on. So if you have and there are definitely, I believe they're called unfavorable gear settings, and it's in the user's guide for the king bee or any of the bees, so definitely check that out. That what might be your first problem, is you may be trying to spin on an unfavorable gear setting, and if that's the case, then you're going to have, like, bands popping, and, like, grinding, and kickback, and it's just going to suck. So, first off, make sure that the gear setting you have it on is one that is recommended and meant to be used. So I recommend, if you don't feel like looking it up, big one, middle one. So I would put it on that first. And first thing I would say do, and this is in my spinning course, the first thing I have a lot of people do is just treadle your wheel. And I have people, when I'm teaching either in person or on our online course, I try to stress this. Treadle your wheel. Just sit here and watch Netflix and talk to your friend or whatever, and just treadle your wheel. And different wheels within Spinolution, or especially from brand to brand, treadle very differently. So this is why you just kind of want to get a feel for it. And the problem I think people were having was kickback on it, and this is where if you didn't have it on a favorable gear option, and then if you were, let's see how you get kind of like this back and forth, you might not be able to see how this wheel's kind of like it looks like a turntable. you know, a turntable. See how if you're unsure on your treadling on this due to the two bands, and so by unsure, here, let me try to zoom in. So, there you go. If you're kind of like uncertain or being herky-jerky with it, it makes your wheel be herky-jerky, and it makes this thing, because it's heavy, I mean, this is a heavy wheel, kind of shimmy. And so I think that's the problem from watching people do it, is they get into doing it, and then they get, like, nervous about it, and then they start kind of, like, it starts kicking back on them, and then that's the problem. So just, first thing I would say do is just do this. Just get it going clockwise, and then just practice doing it so that it's just, like, second nature for you, like it is for me, where I can sit down with, like, my eyes closed and just put my, it's very responsive, I find. I mean, I literally, you can sit down, and I mean, it just magically goes the way I want it to go, which is what you want it to do. So just practice spinning, and you want to keep it very smooth. And this is where I think if you were coming from, I do not have tons of experience on other wheels. My first wheel was a Lewitt S17, which had the one big pedal, and then I went from that to the Polywog, which was like a whole new world, and I loved the Polywog, and that's how I ended up getting into Spinolution so much, was the treadle on that was really easy. I think if I'd gone straight from the Lewitt with the one big single pedal motion to this one, I probably would have thought I was losing my mind. So I'm thinking that's what's happening to a lot of people, is they're going from a different treadle situation, or they're brand new, and so they're just like, what is this? And then it's shimmying on them. So that's my theory. If you are someone having a problem with this and that is not correct, let me know. And also, I would say treadle quicker. And this is where I think I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, is because I am one of those people that get overly enthusiastic about treadling, and I have fast feet. So slowing down my feet is more of a problem for me. But I think if you have a quicker treadle on this, see when you slow it down, that's when it starts kind of so I would keep a quicker treadle motion on it. And so in order to not have, so then you're like, but Erin, I'm going to have super crazy twisty yarn. Well, you offset that by, I've got this on the biggest gear setting up here, and obviously once you get used to the treadle, feel free to back it off into smaller ones. But when you're just getting used to the King Bee, I would say put it on this bigger gear back here, and then that will give you fewer rotations of the flyer per bottom. And then I would just treadle quicker. And so by treadling quicker, you're going to get more momentum going in the correct clockwise direction. And here, y'all can't see what I'm doing. But I think that would be helpful. With the treadling, I would recommend treadle quicker, which means you may want to then adjust the gears into a bigger gear ratio, or maybe the tension blocks on the other side, adjust the tension where it's not as much tension if you're having like really twisty yarn issues. But like I said, this video is just to address the treadle, which is what I was getting people complaining about. So I would say step one, just don't put any fiber on it. Put it on this gear ratio just because I told you to. And just practice treadling. And then step two would be, once you get really good with, you can just stick your feet on it and it goes the way you want it to go, I would then start trying to attach the yarn. I would start with it on the biggest ratio and then move down as you need to, and I would maybe take tension off the tension block, like let it up so it's not, the pull-in isn't as hard, and then once again, as you get used to it, you can add tension back on or easily adjust those gears. But that's where I would start with getting used to it. And like I said, once you, and this is where I say I just kind of leave it where it's at. Once you find what gear you like it on and what tension you like it on, like, this is not a complicated thing. I love this wheel. I use it all the time. You just sit down and, you know, pop it open and you can just take off. So it's just kind of a matter of finding, I would compare it to maybe like driving a stick shift car, except I can't drive a stick shift car. So that's probably a bad comparison. But from what I've been told on driving stick shift cars, where you kind of get your timing down and your comfort down on what gears you like to be in. So I will leave it there with you. And this, like I said, would be accurate for any of the bees, the worker bee, the queen bee, and then this, of course, is the king bee. So that would be my suggestions, is start with the bottom, get going in the right direction, and then as far as, here, let me really zoom in, what the treadle on the king bee is or any of the bees, is a more shallow treadle, and what that means is you're not up and down as much as other treadles, even some of the other Spinolution treadles, but definitely not compared to other brands. I used just at a shop one time, I think it was the Ladybug, I don't even know who makes that wheel, but I felt like my feet were like, I felt like I was riding a bike, and it definitely had like bars in the back, like I said, it very much reminded me of riding a bike. It was like one of those reclining bikes. Whereas this is a really nice, easy rocking motion. And so that's what I'm saying. It may seem quicker to you than what you're maybe used to if you were using another wheel that maybe you learned on at a shop or at a guild or a friend's wheel. This may feel like a quicker to you, but it's just probably that it's a more shallow rocking motion. And they do tell you in the user's guide, you want to push it all the way down, all the way down. And this, I think, that is really good advice, but it may be confusing people, because it's not a push down and stop, then push down and stop, then push down and stop. Because see how that's making it do the turntable thing again. So that's not what the directions mean. Of, you know, you don't want to be like push and stop and then push and stop, because that's going to be making it do the herky-jerky thing that you don't want it to do. What I would describe it as is push it. You're not wanting to like start, stop. You don't want to do it too shallow, and you don't want to like stop at the bottom. So push it all the way down and then all the way, you know, to the other side. Just make sure you're pushing it down, and see how you can switch directions that way. But this is where I really say the most important thing you can do is just sit here with no fiber and just do your feet, and you will find your rhythm. And it's a very comfortable rhythm. I have bad ankles. I used to do physical therapy for them. I do yoga every day, and they're much better now. But I love these wheels because, like I said, I don't want something where there's a lot of like up and down and, you know, whatever. It would just be very tiring to my my feet. So I hope that helps. Those are my tips. If you have any other questions that I didn't answer, or you're like, that's not my problem at all, please, like I said, I was kind of guessing, because like I said, as a fast treadler, and then coming from the polywog to this one, you know, like the first couple times, I was like, this is weird, but then, you know, I took to it pretty quickly. So if I did not address your issue, I'm sorry, and, you know, comment below.